disconcert Jesus, stood up and said to him, "Master, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered right," said Jesus. "Do this, and life is yours." But the man was anxious to justify himself and said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was once on his way down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of brigands. They took all he had, beat him, and then made off, leaving him half dead. Now a priest happened to be traveling down the same road, but when they saw the man, he passed by on the other side. In the same way, a Levite who came to the place saw him and passed by on the other side. But the Samaritan traveler who came upon him was moved with compassion when he saw him. He went up and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine on them. He then lifted him to his mount, carried him to the inn, and looked after him. Next day he took out 2 denarii and handed them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and on my way back I will make good any extra expense you have." Which of these 3 do you think proved himself a neighbor to the man who fell into the brigand's hands? "The one who took pity on him," he replied. Jesus said to him, "Go and do the same yourself." The Gospel of the Lord. Can you imagine Tony Abbott, half dead, on the streets of Glendon Brook Road, and then Malcolm Turnbull walking on the same street? Can you imagine what Malcolm Turnbull will do on the body of Tony Abbott? Or how about James Tedeko, the footy player for New South Wales, laying on the streets of Glendon, and then men wearing maroon shirt, all from Queensland, saw his face on the floor, on the ground. Can you imagine what they will be doing on that half-dead body? Today's Gospel, we've talked about the Good Samaritan. Let me just focus on the Good Samaritan, the parable of the Good Samaritan. The parable of the Good Samaritan was sandwiched between the conversation Jesus had with the lawyer, and then was sandwiched between that conversation. Now, during Jesus' time, lawyers are not your usual lawyers now. They're not like the solicitors and barristers that we have right now. During Jesus' time, the lawyers are knowledgeable about the Mosaic law. It's not the Commonwealth law or the government law. It's the Mosaic law. So most of them are priests or Sadducees or Pharisees, if you may. So they were doing part-time work. So they were lawyers because they were interpreting the Mosaic law. And this lawyer, before I go to the lawyer, have you ever experienced someone asking you a question and you know that they know the response to their question? Have you ever experienced that? Probably your spouse asking you something, but you know that she knows what she's thinking. Jesus was feeling cheesy when the lawyer asked him that question, because Jesus is already aware that he knows the response to his question. But still he asked the question, how can I gain eternal life? He's the lawyer and he knows the law. And what was Jesus' response? What is written in the law? And the lawyer was taken aback. So he said, You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And what was Jesus' response? You answered right. He was short of saying, you already know the answer to your question. But the lawyer, who was anxious, as stated in today's gospel reading, asked him to save face probably, so who's my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? And then when Jesus responded to that question, he shared the story of the parable of the Samaritan. So we have a man, an unnamed person, lying on the ground on his way to to Jericho. Brigands stole his money and they left him half dead along the road. And then there was this priest and there was this Sadducees who passed by, and they just walked on by, not bothering themselves, not allowing themselves to be inconvenienced by helping the man. But we can understand their situation, because if they just touch, not help, if they just touch the half-dead man and they come to realize that he was already dead, they are considered unclean. And for being unclean, they have to do the rituals for at least 7 days so that they can go back doing their ministry. Can you imagine yourself doing something, and because you did something, its impact on you is that you can't work for 7 days? For those among you who are working, will that be good with you? Will you be amenable to that situation? No, because you want to work for 7 days. That's money. That's work. That's 7 days. So the Pharisee, the priest, and the Sadducee, instead of helping him, they just walked on the other side and went straight ahead. But the Samaritan, you must imagine that when Jesus was making this story, he was being listened to by Jews. And the Jews and the Samaritans are not friends. Almost like Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott, or James Tedesco and what's the other group in the state of origin? The Maroons, the Queenslander. It's that kind of relationship. So can you imagine if you are a Jew and Jesus said, the Samaritan is coming. The Samaritan is coming and there's this dead man, almost dead. They were imagining that the Samaritan might steal money from him. But no, Jesus' message was radical. Instead of them thinking, they were expecting that the Samaritan will steal money from the dead man, from the half-dead person. Instead, he took care of him. He put bandage on his wounds and oil on his wounds, mounted him, and then brought him to the inn so that someone can take care of him. He paid the innkeeper 2 denarii and then promised to come back and pay for whatever expense the sick, the wounded person might have. I forgot the word. The innkeeper. Now my question is, this story has 2 implications. First, it's ethical. Second, it's spiritual. Ethical is because when was the last time you helped someone? When was the last time you allowed yourself to be inconvenienced to help somebody? Or is it enough for you to leave your stuff in the Vinis bin so that you can assuage your feeling that you have been able to help others? Or do you spend time, waste time to help others?
Because the invitation for us is to be like the Good Samaritan. That's the ethical part. The spiritual part, remember the psalm that we've heard? Turn to the Lord in your need. The Good Samaritan is not just us. The Good Samaritan is the God that we worship. When we turn to our God, God will not just look at us from afar. God will not just pass by when we are down and beaten or half dead in the road of life. God will take care of us. God will mount us and make sure that we're taken care of. Are you open to the possibility of you being taken care of by your God? Because at the end of the day, the real Good Samaritan is the God that we worship. Do we allow our God to take care of us? Do we turn to our God when we are in need? And do we believe that the God we worship is the Good Samaritan?